Hi, Billy Mays here with
Latin America.
I am Moctezuma II, the 9th Aztec Emperor of Mexico, and I ruled from 1502 to 1520. I'm here to tell you the story of the Aztecs and why Latin America is so great. But first, a history background. Not much is known about the origins of us Aztecs. Other names for us are the Tenochtitlan and Mexica, explaining the origins of the names of the city Tenochtitlan and the country Mexico. We are suspected to be from a nomadic tribe in northern Mexico. Hunter-gatherers, yeah. Our homeland is known as Aztlan, which means white land. We Aztecs arrived in central and southern Mexico after 1200s. Yeah, that's right. We replaced those natives called the Toltecs. So, what makes us so special, right? Why is Latin America so great? Well, that's because we built a city on a lake. Specifically, Lake Texcoco in the Valley of Mexico. Forget about a city upon a hill. That's right. We go big. It covers approximately 8 to 13.5 square kilometers in the Americas at the time. And it housed approximately 5 to 6 million people. It was the largest city in the Americas at the time. It is also the most densely populated city to have ever existed in Mesoamerica. The city was so good that when the conquistadors came, they dropped their jaws, man. In fact, one of the conquistadors, Bernal Diaz del Castillo, even said, "When we saw so many cities and villages built in the water and other great towns on dry land, we were amazed. And some of our soldiers even asked whether the things we saw were not a dream. Our cities contained my palaces, marketplaces, main streets, and temples, such as the Templo Mayor, which is pictured right here." Speaking of temples, our religion absorbed elements from other cultures, like the cosmological beliefs of the Mayas. We believed sacrifices had to be made to the sun god, or else the sun would stop moving. The sacrifices made the sun move through the sky, energizing the earth instead of burning it. Our religion is reflected in our art. A prime example of this is the sunstone. It's hella intricate, as you can see. It depicts the 5 suns in Aztec mythology, and contrary to popular belief, does not have any relation to the calendar. Not to say that the Aztecs did not understand astronomy. We did. We had 2 calendars, one scientific calendar with 365 days and 18 20-day months with 5 extra days, and another 260-day religious calendar. These 2 calendars intersected every 52 years, when an elaborate ceremony involving ritual sacrifices of a warrior who would mark the beginning of our equivalent of a new century. So basically, we go big, and we're intellectuals. So, now time for a fun fact with Collin.
The Aztec language, Nahuatl, and some of its words were absorbed into Spanish and English, such as avocado, chili, chocolate, coyote, and guacamole. Montezuma II. Any more cool things about the Aztecs?
Cities weren't the only things we built on top of water. Chiñapas. They are rectangular enclosures, usually 8 by 90 feet, filled with mud and decaying plant matter that were used to grow food. This form of agriculture was considered innovative as it allowed us to support our huge population, reflecting one of these core themes, interaction between humans and the environment. We didn't have enough land to grow food on, so this is how we got by. Some of these crops are corn, beans, squashes, potatoes, tomatoes, and avocados. That's 6. Another cool thing is universal education. Aztec children were required to go to school, starting at age 12. Kids learned ceremonial songs and cosmology. Girls finish schooling when they're 15, while guys continue until they reach age 20 to be trained for the military. So you can thank us that you're required to be in school. Let's see a typical classroom in Tenochtitlan.
I'm sure you're glad you guys are in Latin America with your free mandatory education and not in Europe, where they don't even know how to read.
Alex, what are we learning about?
Well, Kyle, today we're going to learn about our history, poetry, architecture, astronomy, and of course, how to defeat our enemies.
You think I want to learn about all of this?
Well, let's start talking.
I'm Pachacuti, the 9th ruler of the Kingdom of Cusco, and I'm the person responsible for expanding my kingdom into the great Incan Empire. Our people first appeared in southeastern Peru during the 1100s. The myth is that we were created by the sun god, Inti, and we regarded ourselves as the chosen people, calling ourselves the children of the sun. Our empire is possibly the largest empire in the world in the early 16th century. Talk about natives going big. Like the Aztecs, we are known for our cities too, namely Cusco and Machu Picchu. Cusco is our capital, which was constructed in the mountains of the Andes. At its peak, the city's population was 150,000. The location was perfect too, since it was surrounded by mountain peaks and 3 rivers. In addition, our city was so sick that it was built in the form of a puma. Yeah, the natives go big. The main feature of this city is Cora Concha. It features the extravagant Temple of the Sun, the center of the Inca state religion. We like to flex on the gram, so we lined the temple with 702 kilogram sheets of beaten gold. Animals, goods, and occasionally humans were sacrificed in the name of our religion, but it should be noted that we sacrifice humans far less than those Aztec brutes. The stonework in Cusco is also quite remarkable. The buildings are constructed out of massive stone blocks that are carved so precisely that no mortar is necessary to hold them together. But that's not all, folks. We also have the breathtaking Machu Picchu. Can you build a mountaintop citadel with more than 3,000 stone steps? Well, we can, because natives go big. The city consisted of 3 main structures: Intihuatana, the Temple of the Sun, and the Room of the 3 Windows. Time for another fun fact with Collin.
Machu Picchu is made up of more than 150 buildings, ranging from houses, baths, temples, and sanctuaries. It is also believed that the Spanish never discovered Machu Picchu.
The rulers, or Incas, bathed in the water of mountain springs, transported around the city with complex water transportation systems. But that's not it with our sick technology, yo. Instead of pictographs or an alphabet, we use knotted rope called kipu to keep records. We also had metalwork and the knowledge to perform brain surgery. True intellectuals. Since we live in the mountains, we have to practice terraced farming to ensure good drainage and soil fertility while preventing landslides. Our irrigation systems were also pretty sick. Our infrastructure is pretty radical too. Peep this.
Look at this road. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, man. Did you know there are over 40,000 kilometers of road in this radical empire? For reference, hear me out. The Earth's circumference is 40,075 kilometers. That means that if they laid out all the road in our empire, they'd be able to go around the Earth.
Dude, wait. The Earth isn't flat?
Oh my!
Just kidding.
Uh-oh.
That's sick. That's sick, brother. And I heard that this is the most extensive and advanced transportation system in pre-Columbian America. Well, what's up with this fresh way station? It looks like there's food and rest for weary travelers, as well as storehouses for our dope military.
Oh yeah, they're called tambos. We got 10,000 of these babies around our empire.
This is cool and all, but how did this all get built?
Dude, you don't know about the Mita system? What have you been smoking, dude? It's like when the government forces you to work on projects like this. And stuff like religious centers, dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember now. and women would like they have to weave cloth for the government instead of doing all this manual labor.
Check out this frickety fresh Incan tapestry using cloth from llamas and alpacas. While you're at it, peep this coolio silver llama too. Now that's going
That's a
big.
nice consonant you got there. Mind if I steal it? My name is Hernan Cortez, professional conquistador. When Europeans like myself and many others arrived in Latin America, we changed the course of Latin America forever. To start, we toppled many of the existing empires here. I myself conquered the Aztecs in 1521, and then took control myself. This takeover was actually quite easy for many Europeans, but not for the reason many tend to think. Although it was true that we did have superior weapons, obviously, what really allowed us to take over so easily was the rapid spread of disease, namely smallpox and measles, among Native Americans.
My entire population is dying off to disease that we have no natural resistance against.
You know I had to do it to him.
Syphilis went the other way, although it was much less devastating than the two diseases mentioned above were due to natives than syphilis was to Europeans. Both the Spanish and Portuguese took advantage of the diseases sweeping Latin America to expand their respective empires. The Spanish took control of pretty much all Central America and much of South America, while the Portuguese claimed Brazil. In addition to these organizational changes, we implemented social changes as well. In the creation of systems such as Brazil's Sociedade de Castas, we made a unique social hierarchy. For Spanish colonies, whites born in Spain, called peninsulares, were on top, followed by whites born in the Americas, known as Creoles. Next on the social hierarchy are mestizos and mulattoes, people of mixed race. Finally, black slaves and natives were on the bottom. Speaking of slaves, Latin American plantations were so successful that they required lots and lots of slaves. And in fact, an estimated 9.1 million slaves were brought to Latin America alone during the early modern period. Mine faster already. We need the silver.
All my friends are dead. They died mining to help fuel the global economy.
Yeah, it was, though your steel weapons and guns are clearly superior to us Native Americans' military technology, it was definitely disease that let your people take over ours.
Just mine faster already. Get up! Faster, you!
I can't believe how horribly treated these poor Indians are.
Hey, Bartolome de las Casas, you're wrong. They're not Christian, so that means we can basically do whatever we want to them.
That's not true. They're not like Muslims who directly contest their faith. These American Indians are totally innocent. In fact, abusing
Wrong.
innocent souls illustrate how depraved and materialistic Christian conquistadors are.
False. Some of these slaves revolted against the Spanish and Portuguese rule, but most of them were small and ineffective. However, they did show the tension that existed between the natives and their European overlords. Some slave rebellions were more effective, however. These included a rebellion at Veracruz in 1670 that was led by Gaspar Yanga. They managed to free themselves and live independently for about 40 years in the neighboring mountains. Overall, slaves were intended to help on sugar plantations that fed the ever-growing European demand for sugar. In fact, 14,000 tons of sugar were exported from Brazil in the year 1612. Other cash crops included coffee, tobacco, cotton, and dye. Aside from agriculture, slaves were also vital for the silver mines that sprouted across Latin America in places such as Potosi, an extremely large silver mine in modern-day Bolivia. The surrounding city was very wealthy, as well as populous, with more than 200,000 people by 1672. Silver was so important to the Europeans that many nations set up trading companies just for silver, such as the Dutch West India Company, which took silver from Spanish colonies to purchase Asian goods for sale in Atlantic markets. Latin America was an integral part of the Atlantic trade system, as they also sent important crops back to Europe. Although at first the Europeans were skeptical of these new crops, since they were not mentioned in the Bible, they eventually grew to become staple crops even in Europe. Such crops included maize and corn, each of which took well in the not-so-great European soil, one of the main reasons it fit well there. Additionally, because of this, consistent crop yield, which would normally be a struggle, was not difficult. In addition to their ease of growth, even in the event of a poor harvest, it was likely that we Europeans would be fine. Crops like these store well as being dense in calories, people do not need to eat a lot of them in order to remain sustained. Items were also brought from Europe to Latin America as well. Things such as horses, native to Arabia, were brought over by the Europeans and took well to the new continent. Clearly, Latin America was heavily involved in the globalization during the early modern period. Globalize it.
That was a lot of information to take in at once, so let's recap. First, the Aztecs had a beautiful and densely populated city built upon a lake called Tenochtitlan. The city and the Aztecs' agricultural innovations, like the Chiñapas, reflected one of the unit's key concepts, which is how the people interacted with their environment. Their religion is quite syncretic, and the infrastructure had a lot to do with it. Intellectual innovations in their empire included astronomy and compulsory education. Incas also built a robust ruling structure, with strong infrastructure thanks to the mita, a system of forced labor. The cities of Cusco and Machu Picchu illustrated extraordinary planning abilities, as well as genius stonework. Further evidence of Incan greatness comes from their cultural and artistic accomplishments. The Incas had a particularly well-developed religion and created great art in the forms of tapestries and sculptures. Interaction with Europeans radically changed the face of Latin America. Nations staked claims on the newfound continent, showing state building and expansion. The spread of crops from America to Europe, as well as the transfer of silver, represent the globalizing networks of communication and change, as well as the expansion of economic systems. In order to mine the silver, however, the environment was harmed, an example of the interaction between humans and their environment. New forms of social structures also arose as globalization increased, and new racial hierarchies developed. Easy.
I said, girl, why you keep calling? I said, girl, why you keep calling? Yeah. She said, I need a new whip. Yeah, cause I know that you're still ballin'. She just wanna go back to the future, so I brought that girl a DeLorean. 21 minutes until I gotta go, so I told that girl I'm gonna slaughter it.
Working. This rock is pretty sharp, too. Work a little better. Booga booga.